Cover some drills and concepts that can be used from the bottom position. There are three basic concepts that will give wrestlers a better feel for what they should be trying to accomplish with various techniques and drills from the bottom position. The first concept is try to create space. Okay, I want to thank my partner Sean. We're going to have a new partner for this section of the tape, Rick Lynch. Thanks a lot, Rick. Okay, as I said before, the first concept we're going to talk about is trying to create space from the bottom position. What you're going to find is that any technique that you do from the bottom position, in order to get away from this man or reverse him, you're going to have to create some space between your hips and his hips. I'll give you a few examples. Let's take first the sit-out situation. If Rick can stay close to my hips, I'm always going to have trouble getting away from him, either reversing or escaping. But what the sit-out allows me to do is create space. Okay, so from here, boom, you notice the first thing that happens is I get my hands moving, but I try to get my hips away from Rick. In this situation now, to get my final escape or reversal, my hips move even further away from him as I make my final turn. Take a roll, for instance. If I hit my side roll, in this situation here, I start my side roll here. Now, you notice how my hips came away from him as I rolled him through. Now, eventually, I would like to control him in this situation here, or roll over top and be able to put him in a position so that I can work for my pin. But that's another situation where you're trying to create space with your hips. The third situation may be a stand-up. I'll start my stand-up, get my hand control. Now from here, you notice when most wrestlers get hand control from the bottom, they pop the hips away so that they can create space. If, in this situation or any other situation, say that Rick stays close to my hips and I'm trying to get away, as long as he can maintain control of my hips and stay close enough, he can also maintain control of my body. So that's a good concept to think about when you're trying to get away from the opposition off of the mat. Again, let's just run through this situation again. Creating space here and moving. Creating space with the side roll and moving. See my hips come away from him as I roll him. Creating space with the stand-up. Here, space, and then turn. The next concept I want to talk about is hand control. Anytime you move from the bottom position, and it really doesn't depend too much on what technique you're trying to use, you're going to have to get hand control. That's very, very, very important. Okay, I'll show you what we're talking about. Let's take the three basic movements that we talked about from the bottom position. First is sit-out. Anytime you use a sit-out, okay, from here, you come to a sit-out position. Now, if I just sit out and turn in without getting control of his hand, Rich can follow me all day long. I'll do my turn in, and he just follows around in a circle. I'll do a sit out, turn in, he just keeps following. The time that you can get away from him is when you start to control his hand. Okay, here's what we're talking about. So I come to a sit position right here. All right, now as I do my turn in, I start to peel the hand. Now I can get away from it. You need to think about controlling the hands on just about any sit-out that you do. Okay. The next concept is the side roll. One of the three maneuvers that we talked about starts all of your technique from the bottom position. Okay, it's impossible to side roll this man without controlling a hand. You need to control his hand first. In this situation, it would be the wrist. Okay, from here to side roll him, as I side roll him through, I have to have control of the hand. That allows me to get away from him and maneuver so that I can work for my escape or reversal. the place where this really applies is when you hit your stand-up. You're really going to have a lot of trouble getting away from this man if you get to your feet and he has his hands locked. Okay? Starting from the bottom position, you should be thinking about hand control on your very first movement. Okay? So when I start to come up like such, say with an inside stand-up, I'm already covering his hand. Now, as I rotate to my feet, I have hand control in this situation here. Now, when Rich tries to lock his hands around my waist, I block this hand out. To get away with my stand-up, I like to come across and take a 2-on-1 situation. Now I can work for my escape. From this situation, I can control his hand. I can turn back into him this way. I can control his hand and work out this way. If Rich comes over my near arm here, like such, to try to control me, I control the hand and I rotate out this way. By controlling the hand, I can also step behind his near leg and take him back with a Granby cradle position that way. But if you notice, all of those escape techniques or reversal techniques start with control of the hands. You have to control the top man's hands if you're going to get away from him. Okay, the next concept we're going to talk about is keeping your head higher than your hips. Now, there are a few situations where your head may be lower than your hips. However, in most situations, you're going to find that you have your head higher than your hips. I'll give you a few examples. Let's first take the sit-out situation. Okay, when I come to a sit-out situation, watch the position of my head, watch the position of my hips, right here. Okay? The head is higher than my hips. Okay. If, when I start to sit out, okay, and do my turn in, if Rick can keep my head down on the mat, you're going to have a lot of trouble working your escape or your reversal. So, as much as possible, you want to try to keep your head above your hips. Side roll situation. Okay, initially my head may head towards the mat, but as I start to side roll him through, your head is above the hips. Your head is above the hips. The stand-up is pretty obvious. When you hit your stand-up, you come here. Now your head is automatically above the hips. 2-on-1, turn back into it. Now, let's look at some situations where your head gets below the hips. What happens when Rick is on top and I do this? Rick moves right into a cradle position. Okay? What happens when I'm down on the mat with an elbow up? He goes right into a half Nelson. Okay? So you see that trying to get your head above the hips is important. Anytime you get your head too close to the knee or below the hips, you're asking for big trouble.